Scientists have brought an extinct frog back to life, and it gives birth through its mouth. Are we sure that's not a side effect of sloppy cloning, guys? I'm Anthony for D News, and last week the Grosvenor Auditorium in DC hosted the first TEDx De-Extinction, an entire event about, you know, bringing dead species back to life. But that was so last week. This week we just went ahead and did it, sort of. It happened at a University of Newcastle program called the Lazarus Project, because you get to be as dramatic as you want with your naming when you are bringing back extinct species. And what they brought back is the gastric brooding frog. Gastric brooding means exactly what you think. They give birth through their mouths. Look at that little guy. Hello, little guy. The frog's been extinct since 1983, probably because it just didn't want to give birth anymore. A few specimens of the frog were kept in deep freezers, so scientists grabbed some genetic material and used somatic cell nuclear transfer. You probably remember that from the mouse cloning story I talked about earlier this week. Basically, you take some cellular material from an animal, you put it into the unfertilized egg of another of the same animal. But wait, there aren't any gastric brooding frogs, right? Well, there's a genetically similar frog out there called the great barred frog. So the scientists grabbed one, replaced its eggs with a gastric brooding frog's frozen eggs, fertilized that egg with some more frozen gastric brooding frog, and they had the world's first frog to give birth to another species. Amazing. But we already had some frozen gastric brooders. How do we bring back extinct species that we don't have immaculately preserved samples of? How do we turn our dream of dinosaur polo into a sport? Well, that gets a little complicated. DNA breaks down really quickly after something dies. You wind up with these partial scraps, and they're usually contaminated by things like bacteria and the environment. So Jurassic Park is out. There's just no saving DNA for that long. A little more realistic target would be something like the passenger pigeon, which died out in 1914. Ben Novak talked about it at TEDx. The DNA is partial, but could be filled in with some smart sequencing. The embryo could be carried by a rock pigeon egg. But say we get a physically perfect passenger pigeon. How does it learn to be a passenger pigeon? Where does it learn the animal behaviors that only passenger pigeons know if there are no others around? Well, Novak's got a whole plan, and it involves building aviaries and dyeing homing pigeons to look like passenger pigeons to lead the new birds around, and it's really complex. And in the end, will they really be the same animal? Should we even consider bringing extinct animals back, especially if they're only partial copies? Let me know what you think and subscribe for more D News.